Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our committee of the whole meeting on June 7th. I would like to acknowledge that there's quadruple the attendance as usual in person, which is nice to see. Thanks for coming. We have an action-packed agenda, and there is one amendment to the agenda, and that is the delegation of the RCMP that won't be attending. So with all that being said, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
I will motion to adopt the agenda as amended. As amended, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Paquette.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hanchar. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. A motion, please, to adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting of May 17th, 2017.
Motion to adopt minutes from May 17th.
Oh, sorry, 2022, May 17th, 2022. Thank you, Councillor Slager.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Burris. Any questions or comments?
I have a question, I guess. It's nothing major. Page 6. The straight figure. Is that right?
Diary system, yeah.
Okay, maybe I just don't know this. And then at the bottom line here where it's is this right, Minister? That's all.
It should be minister.
Okay, that was all. Minister Boston should be Minister Play. The last paragraph. Yeah, that's all for me.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hanchar.
The other question that had arisen in the minutes was, so Councillor Slager inquired about how many employees are registered for the town retirement program. Administration stated that you can have that information at the next council meeting. Here we are. How many people?
It's just
Open.
No, it's business size of the minutes.
Yeah, it's just business from the minutes. So
We have 20 employees.
That all contributed to it?
Yes.
Okay.
thank you, Councillor Slager. Any more questions or comments?
No, thanks.
I mean,
Just had one comment. This is our new clerk's beginning attempts to the minutes, which I really appreciate. I think she did a great job. There's just a couple things like referring to he as CA Lockwood, some clarification on those things. Another comment. I think that's good for now. That's it. So all in favor? Carried. Okay, next to motion to pay the open payables in the amount of $148,013.74.
I'll make a motion to pay the open payables.
I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Hanchar and Councillor Burtis. Any questions?
Not for me.
No.
there's just 2 pages of the same thing, hey?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Yeah.
Carried. Okay, so we will move on to number 4. Would it be in our agenda, which is Angela from BDO?
Or number 5.
Oh, yeah, no, the menu, right?
Hi, Angela.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It's always intimidating seeing my big face on those screens in front of you. Yeah, so thanks very much. As you are well aware, I'm a partner with BDO and the independent auditor of Watson Lake. So we have just wrapped up our audit and met with Cam and Shannon just over a week ago to go through all the financial statements. So I'm happy to go through our findings with you tonight and of course answer any questions that you might have on the financial statements. I thought I'd start with giving just a high-level overview of the financials. I'm not sure if it's easier if you have them already in front of you in the screen or if you prefer me to share my screen.
If you want to share your screen for the audience and so we can follow along a little easier, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Okay, so you should now have a much better view on the big screens of the financial statements. So these are the financial statements as at December 31st. So I'm going to flip forward now to page 2 and 3, outline our independent audit report. So the most important paragraph, of course, being the opinion paragraph. We have issued what's considered a clean or unqualified audit opinion. That means that the financial statements are considered to be free of any material misstatement, and they are presented in accordance with the requirements of public sector accounting standards. And these are, of course, subject to your formal approval, Mayor and Council, today. So I'm now flipping forward to page 4, which is a snapshot of the financial assets, liabilities, and non-financial assets of the town as at December 31st. So total financial assets came in at 5.8 million. That was down slightly over last year at 4.8 million. Some of that was utilizing some of the cash, or sorry, an increase, if you will, of cash available this year. So that's just largely due to some timing of, accounts payable being increased at year end and a surplus for the year. In terms of liabilities, some of the larger swings, the solid waste closure and post-closure liabilities, that increased over last year. So that was an increase in the amount being recorded per the latest Morrison Hirschfield report. And there was also a large amount sitting in accounts payable at December 31st that was non-reoccurring. That was a Yukon government overpayment that was repaid in subsequent to year end. So net financial assets came in at just under 3.5 million. In terms of tangible capital assets, that increased from 23.8 million up to 26.7. So this is essentially the cost of all of the buildings and infrastructure of the town, less any accumulated amortization to date. The largest increase this year would have been the municipal building that was transferred at the end of 2021 to the town of Watson Lake. So total accumulated surplus was 30.3 million. That basically represents all of the assets and infrastructure and investment in the town, less any outstanding liabilities.
So, and just for the record, I'm going to clarify the building that was transferred, that was the renovations done to the administration building, the dollar amount brought in. That's
right. And that was 2.9 million was the total value of that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. So I'm now moving on to page 5. So this is the statement of operations. So a summary of all the revenue and expenditures for the fiscal year 2021. So total revenues came in at 9.7 million. That was up over last year and up according to budget for the administrative building upgrades. So the 2.9 million get recognized here under government grants because essentially it's a contributed asset from the Yukon government. Taxation, of course, was very consistent with last year and within budget. In terms of sales and goods and services, that included user fee revenue. So there was additional increase by the district for the Yukon Department of Education. So additional heating paid by the Yukon government to the town of Watson Lake. Also, solid waste fees had increased in the current year due to the demolition and dumping of the Lakeview apartment building and a full year of charges, mining charges in 2021. So that caused quite an increase there of the sales of goods and services. Other categories of income very similar to prior years. And as I mentioned, total revenues of 9.7 million. On the expense side of things, expenditures came in at 5.7 million. That was up from 2020 at 5.4. Some of the large increases were really things opening up again after the COVID lockdown. So recreation was just over $1 million with the pool reopening and the Northern Lights Center. And then also under environmental services, that would have included the increase in charges for the landfill liability for the year based on the expert analysis. So total annual surplus for 2021 came in at 3.95 million. So I wasn't planning on going through all of the notes to the financials. These just provide really additional detail as required by our public sector accounting standards on the balance sheet and income statement numbers that I've gone through. And there hasn't been any significant changes to the standards during this year. I will note in note 7, we had put in a subsequent event note just to note that there was an additional contributed asset that will be reported on the books for 2022 in the amount of 11.6 million. So that we're where that title transfer will be occurring in this current fiscal period. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have on the financial statements.
So you said there was a surplus of $3 million?
Yes, now I'm going to just caveat, this is an accounting surplus. So it's always under the public sector accounting standards, there's a couple things to always note with that. Number one, the surplus does not include any items that were capital in nature or capitalized to the balance sheet. So, you know, that makes up quite a large portion of that. And then also included that surplus is the accounting behind the Yukon government contributed assets. So that's about $3 million right there of additional assets that are included in this government grants amount that don't really represent a cash grant, if you will.
You get that?
I didn't realize we were talking about asset depreciation and stuff like that included in there as well.
Yeah.
That was strictly just like leftover money from like O&M and CMGs and all that jazz.
Yeah. And I had a similar question, Angela, about that 2.9, just because the government grants, it shows as a, you know, that 2.9 million just kind of threw me. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does skew those results, especially when you know, your budget, you're a lot closer to what you actually budgeted for there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then the surplus to follow just kind of, you know, gets you excited.
It does, yes. Very good.
Yeah. Any more questions from anybody? No.
So there are a couple of other documents in your package. I wasn't planning on going through those in a kind of formal presentation, but just wanted to make you aware of what they are and happy to answer any questions you might have. One is my final report to Mayor and Council, and that's really just at a very high level, my responsibility to raise any potential you know, significant audit issues to you and demonstrate kind of the scope of our work and any of our findings. Just as a kind of one sentence overview, there's nothing significant that you need to be aware of or concerned about from that. You know, we would be kind of, I would be required to go through those in more detail if there were any significant concerns, you know, related to fraud or, you know, significant adjustments that weren't being posted in the financial statements. So that's all great news. And there's also a draft management letter for you to review. This is just where we give some suggestions for internal control procedures. And again, we don't have any significant deficiencies to raise, just more items to be on the radar of management. One of them that we discussed is quite a significant change to public sector accounting standards coming down the pipe for 2023. So that will change how you account for your landfill liabilities and also, you know, other assets that are held by Watson Lake that need to have a value attached to them or a liability, if you will, to decommissioning them or getting them out of use. So there'll be more exciting, riveting news on that for you later, but we are in discussions with management on that now.
That's great. I'm glad there's lots of experts in the room because it does get somewhat complicated, especially on the municipal side. So thank you very much. It is a committee of the whole, so we won't finalize this tonight, but we'll put it on to the next meeting and we'll make a motion on that and everybody can review and have any more questions, but I'm sure Shannon and admin can answer that for us if we need to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I just thank you very much. And I know that our finance department has come a long ways in the last couple of years. So it's nice to see that this report is somewhat tightened.
Absolutely. I would say even in my time, it's been now going into 3 years. It's, you know, I would agree with that statement. And, you know, Cam and Shannon and I were speaking and agreed that things went really, really smoothly this year. So it's a pleasure.
Yeah. Nope, and that's great. And yeah, just again, thank you. And thanks, Shannon.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Good.
Did anybody else feel like that was watching CBC News?
It's good.
Really good presentation.
Very professional. So again, thank you, Shannon. For your work. It's a long way, and it's nice to see that everything is going somewhat smoothly. So so we'll just keep moving on the agenda. Thanks, Cam, to CAO Lockwood for all your hard work and dedication and sticking with Watson Lake. Okay, so we'll move right along, which would be number 5, Pacesetters Petroleum Property Tax. They sent us a letter, which I can read because it is brief. I recently received a bill for taxes owing on the property at the lease of Watson Lake Airport. I really must protest at the increase from 500 to 1,100. I understand the need for revenue, especially where the municipality provides services, but the lot that I lease at the airport is quite specialized in its zoning, and I would like to see some consideration and relief ascribed for this. This is not a high revenue location. Perhaps fees could relate to the zoning where lots are being held and not used. Any discussion, questions, comments?
So was the tax increase a result of the Yukon government tax assessment, or is that our own vacant land tax that was applied?
That was us.
It's not the vacant, it's the minimal
Okay,
commercial lot.
so is this company currently operating a business there?
Yes.
Do they have a business license?
Yes.
If so, is the vacant lot really a vacant lot if there is a business being operated there? It says, sorry, 1 second. It says on here that there's, sorry, these are kind of in order. And then how do we determine the business use of the property? If the tax notice says that there were no assessment, improvements, like perhaps are there improvements that don't have any assessed value, like tanks or equipment or things like that? Yeah, I don't know, do you guys wanna, I have more, but I keep going. So.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We increased the minimal rate for a commercial lot, right?
Okay,
From 600 to 1,100.
okay,
In 1 year.
so it's not
That's
that
just
it's,
the minimal
it's not
rate.
that it's vacant, it's not, it's,
That's that.
right,
It's lower than that, so it would.
got you, okay, thank you.
And it is a business and it is a profitable business. It's quite busy.
It is.
And
I think I misunderstood.
and they aren't, they don't, you know, we're happy to have that service in our community. Put it that way. It's nice that people can fly in, land, fuel up. And that is a necessity at our location. You know, the reasoning behind this increase was to, you know, promote.
For sure, I think I misinterpreted something, however, that being said, like, I feel that we have a policy in place, and I think that we should stick to that because we already voted on that.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Councilor.
yeah, thanks.
I also feel like if we were to change it, then we were setting a precedence, and then we'll have other people coming and wanting to have their it assessed as well.
Thank you.
There's some guy who was sitting in this very chair that said that kind of increase from 500 to 600, boom, to 1,100 was a little steep. I got it, and I was like, maybe we could phase this in every 2 years. So maybe, I'm not saying to change it, because we can at this point, but I'm saying in future things where we decide to dramatically increase things by almost 100%, perhaps we could phase it in a little softer. We still have achieved the same goal. You just get there a little slower, that's all. That allows people to adjust. So there's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Councilor. Slater, fair comment.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I just think the
imagine-
shock value of it, that's why you wanted to not ease people into that. It was more of a,
That's the empty lot one, right?
yeah,
So
sorry.
the empty lot was to kind of the shock and awe that we talked about to try and encourage people for development. This was a little different and I understand where you're coming from, but in due course.
Yeah.
But I think as it stands, we have to stick to what we've decided and that
I do.
we will allow admin to address this accordingly.
Yeah.
The policies that we've got in place.
Agreed. And I think we're probably gonna end up with other people that are not gonna be happy. That's change, right?
Yep. And I mean, with inflation, really, is that much?
Just be sure to tell them Slater thought different.
Okay. Yeah, I will. Okay, so again, no motions necessary at this point, but we do agree that we're gonna, that is what our policy is, and we'll stick to it. Okay. Moving right along to number 7. Ms. Levante and Mr. Cole have submitted a couple of letters to us regarding some work that is going on around their residence. I'm going to read one email that we got on May 23rd out loud for everybody. And it is to Cam Lockwood and Watson Lake Town Council. Over the May long weekend, starting Friday, May 20th at 4 p.m., Andy Shannon's contractor cleared his lot. And then on Sunday afternoon, they started cutting the trees on the public land, the right of way. Aaron went down and told them they needed a permit. They told me, Andy had told them that this is his land, their words. ATCO surveyed the right of way last year, 2021. So we know that that wasn't true. Aaron then called the RCMP and asked them to check his permit, which he then could not produce. The RCMP then asked him to stop, which he did, citing that he would be back on Tuesday after speaking with CAO Lockwood and the RCMP. The lot that Andy cleared is a years-old dump for car bodies, cement pilings, and everything else that comes with the lot that houses a service station. And at one point, a sawmill. It also has several unregistered septic tanks, which Aaron knows from working at Ralph Bruno and Buddy Wimp. Now that the trees have been cut clear, the hill no longer has any biomass stabilizing it. And considering that hill itself is mostly sawdust, garbage, and unknown hazardous materials, this is extremely concerning. Now that the trees are gone, the extent of the garbage in the hillside is very evident. This needs to be cleaned up. First and foremost, we have included photos that highlight what I'm talking about. Please see the photos attached in this letter. Secondly, Andy Shannon has a historical history of clear cutting lots, including the public land that is adjacent to them, filling them with gravel and leaving them with no further development for years at a time. This has no benefit economically or environmentally to our community or neighborhood. Why should he be allowed to remove those trees from public property, a part of a street that is residential and lakeside, with no plan as to what to do with no plan as to what the lot will house. Got it. What Ms. Levante and Mr. Cole are asking for will require Andy to show his plan through the development permit process before issuing him a permit to cut trees along the roadside. Have an environmental assessment requested as part of the development permit. The Town of Watson Lake Development Officer has the power to request that an environmental assessment be done on any lot requesting a development permit. Require that the lot owner include plans for adequate drainage from his lot to the surrounding ones, considering we are on our own well and that all our lots and that our lot are directly adjacent to Second Y Lakes is imperative. Only when these things have been completed and development permit approved should the town consider a permit for Andy to implement a driveway. Even then, I would request that they do not allow a complete clear cut unless absolutely necessary. We do not intend to keep Andy from developing that lot. We simply want to make sure that this previous owner's mistakes are not passed on to his neighbors through inconsiderate planning or ignorance. We think our request is reasonable. Please do not issue Andy a permit to cut down public trees until he has satisfied the requirements for a development permit. We request that this includes an environmental assessment and a drainage plan for the protection not only for the residential properties around his lot, but also to protect Wide Drive and Watson Lake's groundwater source. Thank you for your consideration. We did receive one more email late last night. It is kind of short of the deadline for submissions. Okay. So with that being read and that being said, I'll take any comments from council.
Did that just happen?
Yeah, I guess if we can, I guess I'd like to hear from administration as far as like,
What we can do.
what is he actually in violation of, by what he's doing? What has been done so far and what, are we actually able to, from like a municipal enforcement side, what actions are we actually reasonably able to take towards this?
So your worship, when we were notified of it by Aaron and Tyson, and the RCMP were involved, so we went over and dealt with him and put stop work and told him that he cannot develop or not be cutting on office property. So we asked him about his property pins and where his location for his cutting was. We told him that any cutting going off of his property would require a development permit, which he agreed to obtain. I spoke with his surveyors Underhill and also with Mickey Thomas, and they went back and forth with bylaw. I actually met with Mr. Shannon myself and told him that he could not get a permit to do anything for a driveway until he satisfied conditions with us. And he did submit a development permit for driveway access. I denied them based on the fact that he still hadn't come up with a plan as to where he was going. And so right now he is continuing to stockpile his trees that are on the property and do reclamation of the wrecked cars and that other debris that's on his property. And that is as far as he's gone. And he has agreed with us. Like I said, I met with him in person and he has agreed that he will not do anything other than that or move off his property line without, well, anything other than that, unless he has a development permit in and approved by us.
And so
once he puts a development permit in, then we can assess as to what he wants to do on the property. And then as per their letter, then we have the rights under the development and development permit application and the zoning bylaw to go through all those check boxes to ensure that it's not going to be detrimental to the surrounding area or the neighbors.
And to this point, under the bylaw zoning, clearing of trees is not developable. Like he does not require a development permit for
That's
that.
correct.
So he can clear trees, unfortunately, at his will.
Yes.
But only on his property.
On his property,
Not on municipal.
yes. Or YG land. It's got to stay within his titled land.
Titled land. And can you clear cut right to your property line, or do you have to have a certain amount in between? Like, I read this, but I don't understand all the measurements.
So he can clear right to his property line. He just cannot develop right to the property line. There's setbacks.
Okay.
So what we're hearing is that anything that he was in violation of has been
Stopped.
resolved as much as it can be right now,
Yes.
and going forward, as long as he, sorry, I had to think about my words here for a second. you will assess the situation when, if and when he applies for a development permit at that time.
Yes.
And then,
And bylaw is monitoring. See, as he goes through stuff, and yes, I agree, he is doing work on the weekends on his property. But the other side of that is, the person he has running the excavator right now works somewhere else and he has him working on weekends. Right? Yes, it does seem strange, but
and in the present bylaw, or in the present zoning bylaw, which is convenient that we're reviewing this tonight, however, and we can talk about this later if you want, but not now. In the current bylaw, is there anything about having to preserve trees or shrubbery on your land? Like currently with our current bylaw, you can do basically whatever you want, clear cut it if you want.
yes, it's correct.
Okay,
And-
because I have to say, like, I realize that there's nothing in the zoning bylaw, so he's technically not in violation, but I do happen to agree with how unsightly it is that, and, you know, a bunch of other reasons that, you know, when he does stuff, and other people, when they do that to their lots without any real reason for it. There is a point in the new zoning bylaw, which I can read if you like. Anyway, it's K under 8.5, where existing healthy woody plants, trees and shrubs should be preserved or protected in all zones unless removal is demonstrated to be necessary to efficiently accommodate the proposed development or if the vegetation poses a safety hazard. So I love that. And that's something that we talked about like at length throughout the development of this policy. So I think like there might not be anything that we can do about this particular scenario, but there are things that we can do to prevent it from happening again in the future. I think that, and again, I can bring this up later if you like. There is one word in here that is bothersome to me. It's the word should. Because it doesn't really imply that you have to or not. It kind of says like, yeah, you can if you want. And if that's the case, then why is it in there at all? But if it's something that is really important to us as to stop situations like this from happening in the future, then I think that maybe it should be changed to a must. Like it's either
Do or don't.
like a regulation within the policy or anyway, side tangent, but
I circled,
where I'm at.
I circled that as well when I read the bylaw, and I feel like since we're changing things up, that if we're gonna honor something like this, then people shouldn't be able to clear cut right to the property line. Like there should be some allowance so that you actually have a little bit of privacy from your neighbors, like, because that's why we are in country residential and things like that. So when people clear right to their property line, there is literally no privacy. There's nothing that distinguishes you from them, which I think that would be appreciated by people. And it's also environmentally, like, you know, that whole area looks like it's been slide, you know, like there's, I don't even know, I'll be honest with you, when I look at that, I'm not even sure why somebody would want to buy that land. It's really difficult to even develop. There's not hardly any land there because of all the rubble that's on that land.
It sounds like what we're hearing is that he's not in any violation currently,
Right.
and that when he applies for a development permit, all of those things will hopefully be addressed by administration, because there is a number of check boxes that he has to meet in order to receive the development permit.
Yep.
I am not super in favor of, actually, I'm not in favor at all of placing certain restrictions on one person or their lot. Because if we're gonna put those requirements or restrictions or what, I'm not sure the word that I'm trying to say, but for one person, we have to be prepared to do that for every single person. And so that's a huge administrative burden, and that's something that we're trying to avoid. We want people to develop their properties. We want it to be easy, we want it to be streamlined. I understand that this is kind of a special circumstance. That's why I just think that we need to tread very carefully there, so.
This is kind of a one-off, right? Like at this point, it's a one-off situation. It's just like spot zoning. You know, you get a spot residential amongst commercial industrial areas. These problems are bound to pop up, which is why you have to stick with a bigger picture and, you know, longer guidelines, so.
But I know
Go ahead.
there's other people that are very disturbed by what's gone on as well and have spoken to me as well about that. So,
It's our chance to remedy that with the zoning bylaw, right?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Well, there's also in the bylaw there that states that, so much shrubbery has to be a part of a new development as well, right?
Mhm.
But I've also heard people saying, oh, look, you can see White Lake from the road now. So, miss the trees, but you can see the lake. I'm not saying it's right, just
Yeah.
saying that.
But the also reality is like, we can't have the trees back there
Yeah.
right now, unfortunately.
It's kind of in a waiting pattern.
Yeah.
Because without the driveway being approved, what does he need a driveway on that side anyway?
Well, if he puts in a development permit, then admin will be able to inform us on what
Mhm.
that process looks like and what's gonna happen there. But until that development permit is put in, it's his lot and he's allowed to clear the trees.
Yeah, I get that.
So I'm gonna get a little bit out of practice, but if Ms. Labonte and Mr. Cole would like to speak on this for a second, I would welcome that.
I just wanna, while you guys are just talking about the trees, I just wanna say, like, we're not upset about clearing his own. Like, obviously it sucks, but we're not mad about it, that's his problem.
Okay.
But I do wanna just say before you guys get started, because he's gonna talk, you guys are talking about the possible future of zoning lots and like letting people clear cut or not clear cut. I think something that needs to be taken into account are hills. And I understand you don't wanna tell people what they can and can't do, especially in a community where we're desperately trying to get people to develop. But on a hillside like that, and especially one that isn't actually, that is a hill of garbage, it's not ground, it's all garbage and sawdust. So maybe just like considering allowing people on flat ground to clear cut, maybe a hill with people's houses behind them, that would be something to consider, like not allowing or regulating a bit more, especially with like the lake on the other side.
Vegetation for retention. Yeah, yeah.
That's like literally holding that house.
Okay.
So,
For sure, we'll see.
it's a very real concern.
Okay. Tyson.
Start off by saying, patients, particularly on the weekend, when we call you about this. We have contacted town bylaw and RCMP based on response. So what Aaron's point was please council do not misinterpret our shop at the lots next to it being clear cut as desired. And you can develop those lots appropriately response. So responsibility and accountability from our neighbor in reference to White Lake, the waterway, and the street. Yeah, so in reference the letter previously sent on May 20th, as well as the letter from last night. Thank you for consideration of both. I got a couple of requests around the links within. Those are within the first email. Those are simply image files, which apparently been sent appropriately of the apparent garbage, the vehicles rolled back in the hill on the east of the property, as well as the visible cement pilings and other refuse on the west side of us, as the owner of that lot owns the horseshoe respectively around us. So that's what those files were in the first email. The second one is there's a few various links on environmental assessment, particularly relating to YESAB, whether an assessment is required, just for additional detail.
And also about him working on the weekend, like I realized that Robert does work somewhere else during the week. But I think what's a little scary for us is they have entered our property illegally to cut trees down off the power line while we weren't home. And they also have cut now 2 holes after this past weekend, but the hoe has now cut 2 holes in the trees along the side of the road. So it's not just that he's there on the weekend that is shady about this whole operation. It's that literally, unless we are sitting in our house watching it, they are doing illegal stuff. They are coming on our property, they are knocking down the trees in the buffer, they are having contractors come and come with fake permits to show the police, like luckily that they didn't fall for. So it's more than just them coming and being ominous. It's like they are doing illegal stuff and we have had to sit home every weekend for the past 3 weekends to make sure that they don't come clear cut the trees on our own property. So.
So we thank council for their decision on waiting on the development plan and not giving this property development to be benefit of the doubt. And particularly around other land developments that this landowner has followed through with, where heavy developments get required, where the land has been clear cut in the last 4 to 10 plus years, underdeveloped, or also not following points referenced by council. So thank you for.
And also he has not had the lots of it, which he's saying that he has in there.
Yeah, there's a few different things that may come down to different issues beyond what we are here for tonight. Particularly along property lines and the specifics on them. It's a property disputes with the owner. I won't digress too far. But on top of all of this, Henry Shannon has not expressed any intent or clear understanding of what he was going to do with those properties prior to just clear cutting them and telling us nothing. So this is why we are quite shocked and concerned and addressing the council. So
Just don't feel like we can trust him and really need your support. And I've had it so far and appreciate that, and we just like really hope that that can continue. And there isn't, it's really tough because there isn't a clear line as to who's supposed to enforce this. So we really appreciate Cam and Connie answering our calls. So we're just like living in fear and appreciate your help and hope that that's really
And it is, that we're paying attention and we'll do what we can. Most of our ability, so.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Okay. Yeah. Difficulties of a small town politics, small town everything, small town people, small town fun.
small people.
Yeah.
Some people have lots of
But appreciate your professionalism and approaching this in the best manner you can, and we will do the best in the way we can. So, okay. With that, we're gonna keep going because we still got lots to go through. So
Going to take your trees out of your front yard.
see you.
Thanks.
See ya.
See you, Shannon. Thank you.
Thank you.
One additional question.
No,
So,
just kidding. Go ahead.
beyond this point in talking to council and CAO, appropriate method for concerns and additional questions around this, what and time.
We need 24 hours for a council meeting,
Yeah, I understand that was.
and I think you're doing all the appropriate manner. No, just, the patience that you have, make sure you maintain it. And, I think what you're doing is fine to, I think to not exacerbate the situation, you might want to maintain some distance from the contractor or the landowner, that's,
Which we have, so.
that's my suggestion as a citizen. But otherwise, I think what you guys have been doing and, your patience with what's going on is great. And, like I said, we'll do the best we can. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna keep moving along. I have a letter from Minister Palais. He is requesting a representative for a new working group to be on for museums and cultural centers policies. I think actually in the letter he asked me if I wanted to be on that
Oh, okay.
Well, the invitation to participate in developing the document and encourage you to take part in this. I look forward to working with you, but I think the invitation was for you to either do it, oh, yeah, we asked that you kindly identify your desired representative or representatives for the engagement sessions.
Does it have to be a member of council? Maybe,
A member of the community?
can it be a community member? That's what I'm saying.
Can be the Muppets.
I also wonder,
Careful.
I also wonder,
Yeah, it's okay.
he just got voluntold to do something.
Yeah. I got you on the museums and cultural centers policy and creation.
Committee.
Well, how about we put it out there? We'll put it out to the public to see if there's anybody
So it
from.
doesn't have to be a member of council, it can be
Yeah.
anyone who. I think it's nice that they've extended the invitation, but I also find it a bit weird because we can't even get to that table. Do you know what I mean? As far
Yeah,
as, yeah, so.
we'll encourage somebody to partake in the as best we can.
Okay.
Yes, your worship, just from administration, they're already burdened enough that I cannot put any stuff in.
Understandable. And I don't know. It'd be great to have, yeah, we'll extend that invitation to as many people as we can. And see if we can find someone appropriate to be part of that. CAO Lockwood, your report, please.
My report. As you can witness, we are a little busy in town right now. It's nice to see landscaping has started. We are hosting a staff meeting and barbecue tomorrow. So all our facilities would be closed from 12 till 2 tomorrow. We haven't had anything for staff meetings or any of those conversations for 2.5 years now due to COVID, so it's long overdue. And at the same time, we're going to recognize Terry Close. So the council will be in attendance, please. Northern Light Center is open and we have just hired 2 more staff, which will be starting in the next week. So we'll be able to open from 5 days a week to 7. And I think this afternoon we were successful in hiring the term position at the rec center for reception as well. I was very excited when I was there and seeing the new hire actually had a wet rag and cleaning spray in their hands and would go around and cleaning without being asked to do or told to do it. So it was enlightening. We are having issues at landfill. We are very severely understaffed right now. We're running the landfill with 2 people in the recycling and scales. So, and people are hauling in like crazy. So we're over inundated. So we have hired the new scales person. We're just trying to get them to start, sooner than later.
Is that sorry to interrupt, is that the only position that you need to fill, or is there one more position?
We have a term position that's advertised and so far no one's applied for it.
Okay.
And we have another position that is full, but the person is away due to family emergency. So they're away for another week yet. They're back on the 14th. So that's put us down to 2.
Is there? This is outside of my, what I'm supposed to talk about. Is there any chance of like sharing the public works guys if it gets
We're short everywhere.
everywhere? Yeah, okay.
So, and it's at holiday season as well, plus we're doing digs, so
We're accepting extra waste at the.
yes.
Yes,
It's a perfect storm.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
sorry to interrupt.
So we're moving ahead. Yeah, it's busy, as you can see. The rec center lighting is supposed to be starting later this week. And along the change rooms, we're just waiting on the date. They were still waiting on bathroom partitions. So those projects are still floating along, but it's busy, and that's about all I'm going to say tonight because of the fact that I keep throwing on for hours about stuff and I don't want to. Mr. Stackhouse is going to keep us very busy when he gets into strategic plan and zoning bylaws, but I just want to encourage Councillor Hanchard to bring forward her points that she spoke about earlier, now that Jordan's on. To be included in what's going to happen with your comments about the zoning bylaw.
Sure.
So that's it.
Thank you, Councilor CAO Lockwood.
Yes, and I'll be open for questions later.
Yeah, we can have council open for, so if there's anything you guys want to ask regarding any kind of thing that's happening, please hang on to that question. Hello, Jordan Stackhouse.
Sorry. Did you do that intentionally?
Oh, sorry. Yes, no, sorry. We have number 9, which is the admin report for the CAO house. CAO Lockwood, do you would like to read that? out?
So, council, before had asked for a report on the status of the CAO house. So in your packages, you will find the report on the CAO house. Which needs substantial investment if we were to keep it for an in-depth period of time. But as I told you in previous meetings, the need for the CAO house right now is imperative to me staffing the fire chief's position. We don't have a house for the fire chief to rent, then we will not have a fire chief. So it's imperative that council looks at it through that lens, but my recommendation is that once we no longer have the fire chief requiring residency or their term ends, then that we would list the house for sale through a real estate broker to help entice the real estate market and value for other homeowners in the community that are looking to set market value. And in your package was pictures of the house and some of the work that needs to be carried out if we were to keep it. Some of the work that it's minor work that needs to be done now for cosmetics and just soft and fascia to be fixed, which isn't going to cost as much, and we have money in our own end budget. But the major issues in the house are beyond that, and they've been like that for a few years now. Actually, the siding where it's buckled was like that when I lived in the house, and I had Steve Murphy look at it, and he couldn't tell me why it would have buckled like that. But it's something that the only way to fix it is take all the siding off and replace it. So we're talking major dollars that have to go into it. And the issues with the bottom plate on the garage is because whoever built the sidewalk built it higher than the concrete footing for the garage. So it's become a trough, like a water trough for the water really in. So which has caused moisture to get in there and lay and cause issues on that bottom sill plate. So there's, like I said, there's work to be done on the house, but I agree. We shouldn't be in the housing business, and if it wasn't for us to have to staff the fire chief's position, I would say that we would put it on the market immediately. But for town's liability, right now we need residents for fire chief, and I need a fire chief. Period.
So we're in a cow meeting and we haven't made any motions. So if we could, we'll just, we'll table this till the first or the next meeting in June and make a decision on that. And then everybody can,
Are we gonna talk about it?
Yeah, it's not.
Sure. Sorry. If you have any questions, comments?
I guess first of all, I'm in agreement, obviously if we need it for a potential staff member, then we should retain it for that purpose. Originally I thought, okay, if we sell this house and then I'm trying to think like down the road, like Cam is obviously our CAO right now, but I don't know how much longer, how many more years, hopefully many, but down the road, if we're trying to recruit somebody else to fill that position, I thought, okay, well, that was the whole point, was to have this residence that the CAO could live in. I mean, hopefully by the time that happens, we'll have all of these new developments, whether it's the fiveplex or whatever is happening, some lot development happening. So I'm thinking that's going to be less of an issue. But I did have one question, and it was about the last paragraph where it says, even if council recommends the sale of the residence, we will have to do some minor repairs to allow us to generate the best sale value. I'm curious to know what that budget amount is, because it does say if we wanted to keep the residents, we would probably need to invest $100,000 into repairs. I'm curious to know what the minor repairs are, what the dollar amount is there, especially given the fact that earlier on, it says that we spent 51,000 on repairs in 2017. So I mean, we're getting pretty close already to the 100 mark. And then my other question is, you know, if the house could potentially generate $300,000 in revenue, where is that revenue? Where would that be going?
Okay, Your Honor, first off, I'm talking maybe a couple $1,000s in repairs,
Like just really minor
minor.
things?
Yeah,
Okay.
those are in the pictures in your package, that is the repair where on the front of the house, and I can say,
We're not like doing the roof or like
no.
things like that,
It's
like it's,
minor issues like fixing the front fascia where the soffit or the eavesdrop is hanging down, the board's rotten. And then putting the soffit back up on the end of the house, so it's the minor piece. The rest of it, yes, it's the $51,000 that was spent on the house in 2017 was that was redoing the whole upstairs floor of the house. So that was a total gut job of the upstairs and redoing it, other than the cupboards. But yeah, if, like I say, the rest of it, that's siding, shingles, fixing the bottom sill plate. That's where that $100,000, and it might even be more than that.
Okay.
No.
just because you know, we can't get that.
Yeah, and then, sorry, what was your second?
I was wondering where the overall revenue of the sale would go, like is that,
That would be up to council to dedicate where that money would go. It could either go back into reserves, which would be a
That's-
recommendation
okay.
from administration.
okay,
And my vote is we sell it immediately, fix it up, just do the little things there, get rid of it, because that house reeks of favoritism. When my house collapsed, you guys offered it to me on a month-by-month basis, knowing that full well I could be booted any second. Thank God I didn't go that route, because, you know, now I got housing, but I just look at the cost of holding it. If the fire chief wants to buy the house, you can buy those. I had to find my own place. I lived here, lived here my whole damn life. And we're gonna go and help out some rando showing up from anywhere, but we can't help our own. Now, get rid of it, get rid of that problem forever after, sell it.
I look at staffing, retention, recruitment. I look at the fact that we can't recruit people locally to fill jobs that we need to have filled, which means we will always have to recruit from outside. And so then if you sell it, where are you going to house them? How are you going to house them? If our market continues to go the way that it is. I mean, we know right now that we have, a housing first project coming up that will house 10 people that need housing, very small, but 10 houses coming up. We know that the Bergerons are building 10 places. Other than that, I'm not sure who else.
6 on Francis?
I'm not sure who else is building, and I'm not sure what's gonna open up, because with talking to Boston, we have still no answers, right? So I'm torn in the fact that I understand that it's gonna need some kind of work, but then what's your game plan for housing somebody if you need to hire outside? Housing is something that is a recruitment issue and it's a retention issue. And so coming from somebody who came here and was offered housing, which is a recruitment issue for me, that was very valuable. And that's what brings people here. And the corporation at one point in time, when they first were taking over, we're gonna get rid of all of that. And they were like, the government's like, why? How are you, where are you gonna house people? You can't recruit anybody. You can't find staff. You have these positions that we're recruiting nationwide to try, and look how long it took us to find somebody. So we have to house somebody some way, somehow. Now, whether we sell the townhouse because it is too much work, and we look at maybe one of these properties that we're going to be inheriting because they haven't paid their taxes, and maybe we put a trailer on it that's brand new, got a warranty, that's not so big, that isn't gonna cost you $300,000. You're still out in the end coming out with more money ahead. But I feel like we need to have something in place. maybe it's not that place, but maybe it's something else that we can secure. And I know the corporation keeps, the way they are able to keep those houses is they still pay for them, right? Whereas other staff that come to town, they're living in hotels and, you know, bed and breakfasts for months before they're actually get into, you know, YTG housing. YTG housing is meant for low income. It is not meant for, you know, people who are hired by YTG. That's why this housing, it's not available to people unless something comes up, right? They're on the list like everybody else. So what are we gonna do?
Yeah, thanks,
Like,
Council.
Encourage the private sector the
Yeah,
best we
that's the
can.
best we can. I value your comments. We appreciate that. And, you know, it is there's two sides of the table. You can see it's not an easy decision and, you know, you can weigh in when we make a vote. Okay, and if there's some amendments to that motion that you'd like to see happen, then we'll do that. Okay, I appreciate that. Councilor Burris, do you have any comments?
No, not at this time.
Okay. I'll wait. We have, so we'll just leave it at that. We're gonna table it till the next meeting where we can make a decision. As you can see what the preferred recommendation is. Yeah. Okay, there can be more discussion about it. I hope that everybody's satisfied with that. Jordan Stackhouse is on the line. He's been waiting patiently. He's got lots to tell us, so.
Thank you, your worship. Hey guys, just here on Cam's request, I guess. He told me I was just here to answer questions, so I don't know how much I have to tell you tonight. So I'll just play dumb. You know, interesting conversation just listening to before, and I'll just let you guys know I'm working with CarMax on some of their planning stuff, and they're ended up having to do a cost benefit analysis. That's what they're going to do for their staff housing. Same deal, same thing you guys are thinking about. So I just thought I'd let you know that other people are dealing with, and maybe even Tracy might have some insight to that. I'm not sure, but on how they're going to tackle that, but just FYI. But what I'm here to talk about tonight is the zoning bylaw and the council strategic plan. I'm not sure in which order. Like I said, I don't know what to talk about.
First we had on the
Yeah.
agenda, the draft zoning bylaw, and I guess really what you could maybe highlight for us were any of the big changes or the big things that changed within the bylaw that you noticed or that, you know, we were talking about recently.
Sure. Yeah. I think like the purpose of our work on the zoning bylaw there was really to just clean it up. Nothing substantial changed about the zoning bylaw, other than I think my partner Graham and I, we had to focus on providing flexibility to the staff in terms of what they may look at for different development types. So for example, like with like landscaping is a good example. So in the previous iteration of the bylaw, I was just very prescriptive about what the requirements were, you know, like how many shrubs you needed to have kind of thing. And like, it just, to my view, I wasn't, and like Cam agreed, like talked about all this, like, it just wasn't like a good fit for where Watson Lake is at this time. And so we looked at a lot of that stuff. So where it was permissive before, we just allowed flexibility. And that's pretty much across like every zone. So we replaced a lot of the shalls with some mays, and just tried to give people like examples of what's like the expectations would be if they were required to do something like that. So if it was, say, a bigger development where the town wanted to go kind of full bore on landscaping requirements, like you guys still have the ability to do that. And it's still laid out in your zoning bylaw in such a way that you guys can ask for that. And that's still like totally above board. But what on the flip side, like when it's just kind of like Joe and Jane developer looking at a development, we don't want to scare them off by being like, oh, this is like so complicated, and like, you know, what are they going to hold like $50,000 of my money in like a landscaping deposit or whatever? So We just tried to kind of clean that mostly. There was a few kind of key issues that we went over, like the ATCO trailers. I know council wanted to ensure those were captured in the various zones. So they weren't, so some of those issues didn't crop up. Some stuff came up about heritage as well, and how council might address heritage preservation in the zoning bylaw. And we had a look at that, and we felt the best approach for that was actually to do a separate bylaw. So we provided some literature to CAM about pursuing a separate heritage bylaw that can be a complement to your guys' zoning policy. I think at the end of the day, guys, like the take home message is like, we want your zoning bylaw to be permissive and flexible. Just considering like what council is up looking forward to, which is as much development as kind of possible. And we just tried to make it make sense and make it flow and put things in alphabetical order and make sure all the things were labeled properly. And you know, where things were borrowed from other jurisdictions, that they made sense for the town of Watson Lake. And I think there might be one or two outstanding things. Pay for parking spaces. So that's some information I still wanted to get you guys. Typically people can pay money to reduce the number of parking spaces required for the development. So I just wanted to get you some information on that. And again, the heritage bylaw. But other than that, guys, I think it's pretty good. Like I told Cam, these things are never 100% perfect. You're always kind of finding things as you go. But we've all had a good look at it, I think. And Cam, if last I talked to you, you're happy. So hopefully you're happy with the final one. And I think it looks good. It's easy to read. It makes sense. It kind of captures everything you guys need based on what you're dealing with and where you want to go. So and I'm happy to answer any questions I can. And I did work with a colleague, a planner named Graham, and he really did most of this. So if I can't answer, I'm happy to also get back to you on that.
Sure.
So your worship, I can just sort of go through some of
The big changes.
Big changes.
Sure. that'd be great.
A lot of it's to deal with cleaning up the definitions, because the definitions were sort of vague in some instances. So
Okay.
the definitions were clarified. There's some new definitions, because in our bylaw before, it only talked about agricultural minor impact, but then as you know, part of council's strategic plan was to support agriculture in the community. So we actually had a definition for major impact and where that can happen. We also went through and clarified in the different zones what we really laid out the primary use first and then the secondary uses. So to make that really clear. And then the other thing too was in those commercial zones, like the ones where you're just sort of the zone like you were referring to with Levante and Cole. The fact that Van Santec had gone through the bylaw, they had put in there that residential could be allowed in those zones. And as you know, right now in those commercial or industrial zones, having residential in there causes nothing but grief. And anything that's in there now is grandfathered. So it was just cleaning that up so that new construction wasn't allowed to take place on those lots, because then we'd open the door for more disputes. So, you know, we could have a brand new residential house going on a lot in the industrial area, which then you're losing industrial area.
Yep.
The other thing that we put in here was about the source water protection area. So where that'll show up is on the map of showing the zones of the community, of show where source water protection area is, so people have reference to it. And then solar was cleaned up, utilities were cleaned up. And then we went through just to confirm the duties of the development officer. The Board of Variance stuff was also looked at. Development permit exemptions and requirements were looked at. So I guess this would be where maybe Councillor Henshaw was talking about, you know, how do we police, you know, not having so people can clear cut a lot, but then you must have it so people can do clearing on their lots without having to have a development permit and having us have to follow up by bylaw to tell them how they can do that. I know in other jurisdictions where I've lived, as part of the setback, you weren't allowed to cut trees in the setback. So if the setback was 3 meters from the property line, you couldn't cut any trees in there. But then in our lots, that really makes the lot small and you won't have room to do that. So it's really tricky in those circumstances. The other things we cleaned up was got rid of guest house, because the guest house sort of falls under garden suites and those type of deals. So we cleaned a whole bunch of that up. And then there was about drainage was also looked at. C-cans was also addressed. Secondary uses, that definition was cleaned up. And then landscaping definitely was looked at, and parking, where Jordan just referred to. So, you know, cash and lieu, and then they do that in all, majority of the other communities now. So if it's in here, it talks about for whatever your development is, you need X number of parking spaces, but if you can't provide them, then you can pay $5,000 to the town, so you eliminate one, you know, those type of things. And then, and that's, yeah, then the bed and breakfast lodging has been fixed in there.
Would that apply to churches as well?
What's that, for churches for parking? Yeah, because there's parking requirements for churches.
It says one parking space for every 4 patrons.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of some churches that don't actually have their entitlement. We run the parking at St. Anne's.
Yeah.
To meet.
Yeah. So, yeah. But
So like on Easter and Christmas, we're gonna go there and start issuing tickets or what?
I don't know, I guess it's,
Grandfathered in though, aren't they?
yeah, anything that's in there now is
Yeah.
grandfathered.
We can't do anything
Oh,
about
it's
it.
only new churches.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, okay then. So I'm just making sure, because we
That goes for, this thing is grandfathered, right?
Can't do anything.
Yeah, so,
You're very unpopular.
the living suites and garden suites has been addressed. Kennels and stables and agricultural pursuits have been changed, solar energy, both types. And then you get into the different zones. And it's really broken out that primary use must be done before any of the secondary ones can be done. And then there's the options under the conditional uses for those different zones that where it would come back to council for review. And if it was allowed in the conditional uses, and the conditional uses have to feed into the type of zones that are there. So it really, compared to what we're dealing with right now, we've come light years. And like Jordan said, we'll never be perfect, because I'll guarantee that you guys will approve this, and you know, probably a month later, we'll go back to look for something and it'll be like, oh crap, we missed that. Right? But that's where the leeway, there is the leeway with the conditional uses that council can address some of those issues. It might get a little more onerous on that side, but you know, we can review this bylaw, you know, after a year to make sure that, you know, if there is something that was missed.
We can address it.
And the other thing was having a zoning bylaw that spoke to the OCP, because before the OCP and the zoning bylaw didn't talk to each other. They actually contradicted each other. So those things are things that have to be looked at and have been addressed in here. And same with the definitions, like in the commercial mixed zone, we looked at them and went, well, that doesn't make sense for that zone. So why is it there? So I think as a whole, I'm happy with what's presented, but I'm sure council needs to actually take a read of it once or twice and to see if there's anything else in there that would jump out at you. And like I said, I've been through it so many times that I'm also over to miss things.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's hard for us because we're not using the document,
Exactly,
so
but
it's hard to really know what's gonna be the best fit for admin, because we can spout off every kind of thing we might like to see in there, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, so.
I think
You
what
want to
you-
know what's great, guys, is the gentleman I work with, Graham, he used your old OCP and zoning bylaw all the time. So he was really familiar with it, and he's needed to use it for different like land use things. So he's like, oh yeah, I didn't like this at the time. So he's like gonna change it. So I mean, yeah, there's probably, I don't know, like over 100 like small little like changes, like maybe hundreds like spelling mistakes, or just there's no definition for this, or like this doesn't make sense here, or this isn't supposed to be here. And so just changing all that all around. But I would say, generally like the intent of the zoning bylaw, Cam just highlighted a number of things that we did change. But the intent is generally the same. Like there's no big surprises or anything like that. It should be mistake free and readable by someone can just pick it up and read it and kind of understand what they need to do for the most part. And like I say, just giving the town that flexibility to just kind of meet developers where they're at and work with them to bring more housing on the market in Watson Lake. Yeah.
And I think the big thing for council to look at is go to the different zones and see if you guys are happy with what's in there for the primary and secondary uses. If there's something in there that jumps out at you that, man, why would we allow that in country residential? Or why is that allowed in, down to commercial mixed, like, those are things that I think you guys can look at. The rest of it sort of all falls together. It's just those types of uses that you're satisfied in those type of zones.
Okay.
One comment I want to make that I didn't see on here that I think should be on here is if you're rezoning or if you need to get a development permit, it should stay in here somewhere that your taxes have to be paid in full. Like if you can't pay your taxes, how are you going to develop your land? How are you going to rezone your land? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing, because that all costs money. So I don't know. I just looked at that and thought, well, shouldn't your taxes be paid up if you're going to do all this stuff? So I don't know if that's something that you incorporate in that, or if that's something that you as a development officer go, well, your taxes aren't paid up, so I can't give you a development permit. You need to pay your taxes first, right? Like, because it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Cam, go ahead.
Well, I think that's something that we can deal with in another policy, on how do we, overdue accounts, that type of thing, that, you're not allowed access to services if your accounts aren't in good standing.
Yeah, and Councillor Paquette, that's more, I would say that's more on the development permit side, like you were saying. So the zoning bylaw and development permits definitely like related. And you need to meet all the stuff that's in the zoning to get a development permit. But I would say like, yeah, that's more on the policy side, like a condition of like doing, maybe getting certain services from the municipality. And you could look at that a number of different ways, I guess. Yeah.
Like if somebody's not paying their taxes and their garbage is linked to that, are we just not picking up the garbage then?
No, it goes on the taxes, which go to tax liens.
But if they're not paying their taxes, is what I'm saying.
Well, then it goes to the tax lien process, and then we pursue taking the property.
But in the meantime,
Yeah.
they still have a year and they haven't paid their taxes, so we're still picking up the garbage. That's what I'm saying. When you're talking about,
Well,
they don't have access then to things that the town is offering. So like if that's linked to their taxes and their taxes are in arrears, then are we like, that's just an
no,
example.
but I'm talking about other services that it's financially, like we legally cannot stop picking up garbage. It's under the municipal act that we have to provide those services.
Okay.
So, but it's access to other financial or that type of thing, service wise. So.
Be an example, sorry.
What's a good example? So if you're a commercial, let's say if it's a commercial business that hasn't paid their fees, then we can cut off their water and sewer.
Okay.
Or it wouldn't be sewer, but it would be water, right?
Okay.
Yeah, there's provisions of that in the different acts.
And have we ever done that?
We got close.
Okay.
You guys have done a lot of tax liens though. Lots of tax liens.
And we've got two more that are in the final stages, of which we'll be taking properties here, I think within this month.
Councillor Hancher is chomping at the bit.
Thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to say that there's still nothing in here about Airbnb or short-term rentals. I realized that it's also in the strategic plan. I know it's on in the forecast for the future, but it's not mentioned in here at all. So I don't know, do we go back and amend this bylaw later once we decide that that's something that we want to implement? Or it just seems to me that maybe we should be doing that now while we're in the process of doing that. And it says in the back here in the appendix of the strategic plan, which is very awesome to read, but I will add, Jordan, it's,
So I can comment about the Airbnb stuff.
yeah,
We spoke about that at length, and every other community deals with that as a separate bylaw other than the zoning bylaw.
outside of the zoning bylaw.
Outside the zoning bylaw.
Okay, thank you. I thought, for the amount of times we've talked about it and the amount of times we've gone over the zoning bylaw, it's like still not in there. So I thought okay,
Yeah.
thank you. If it's separate, then I can accept that.
Yeah, I think like the heritage bylaw that we're kind of suggesting, I think that's another complementary bylaw to the zoning bylaw for sure.
Do you still want me to reiterate what I said earlier? So the section under 8.5 under landscaping, point K, I guess, where it says that existing healthy woody plants, trees and shrubs should be preserved and protected in all zones. That section, I am proposing that we change the word should to must, because I feel like, I know you said that it's really just meant to be a guideline or whatever, but if it just says should, then really nobody, like you don't have, like you can do whatever you want basically. So anytime you say should, like it's really not enforceable or whatever. So I don't know how everyone else feels as
I
far as.
disagree because it ties into the other end of that sentence. If you read the full thing. Because it's the should, it's a subject predicate agreement almost, but it's like, come on, English teacher. It's one's dependent on the other.
Yeah, that's how it reads. I could read the sentence for you guys if you want. Existing healthy wood plants, parentheses, trees and shrubs should be preserved and protected in all zones unless removal is demonstrated to be necessary to efficiently accommodate the proposed development or if the vegetation poses a safety hazard. So that to me like reads like you guys wouldn't, somebody would need to come up with a good reason as to why they need to do that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It should this.
I did read the whole thing.
But yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
It's all gobbledygook unless you're a planner, man. Like, it's a balance to give that town the flexibility, but still signal your guys' intentions. And it's a real balance, I think, in a lot of areas. But that's a good.
I think it's
That one's a catch-22.
I still stand by it though.
You don't require a development permit to clear trees on your property. So how do we implement K if they don't have to apply for a development permit to cut trees?
Well, yeah, I mean, you need that control, right? So, I mean, if you guys want to control how people cut trees in their yard, then we need to look at what the best tool for that is. And it might be the zoning bylaw, it might be a maintenance bylaw, it might be something else. I'm not sure. I don't have the answer right for that, but I wouldn't say it's addressed explicitly that you're not allowed to do that in the zoning bylaw. So if somebody was like, well, it's not clear in the zoning bylaw, they probably, you probably lose on that one, but.
Are we gonna go through this bylaw right now, or are we just talking?
We're just talking about it.
Yeah, just concerns.
Oh, because I mean, there's some stuff that, yeah, I mean, I've made notes on here. Who's on this board of variance?
Nobody yet.
It's part of the municipal act,
Oh, is this
Councilor Paquette.
new?
No.
No.
We appoint people to the board.
Or who's on it?
Nobody.
It's,
Well, it was Jerry Amen, Jim Holtz,
And Gord
Sumby. But we have to redo that if we bring this new bylaw into play. So we'll have to appoint a new board of variance.
Or Jim?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jordan Stackhouse.
Well, I believe that council can ultimately be the board of variance. So because you guys deal with it so infrequently, I've advised people in the past to just do the variance yourself, because ultimately the act says it needs to go back to council for approval anyways. So I mean, I guess if you wanted to remove that perception of like conflict and have like a third party do it, but if you just want to deal with the variances as they come up and approve them, I think that's also fine under the municipal act.
But I thought here it said that counts, the board of variance cannot be a member of council or an employee, I thought.
Of the
Board of
town.
Variance shall consist of-
Well, I say skip the board of variance. Like, I'm not saying put a member of council on the board of variance. I'm saying it ultimately comes to council for your approval anyways. So I think it's just a matter of process, like how you guys want to tackle that. I've definitely told people, municipalities in the past, that just approve the variance if it's like minor and there's going to be no flack. If you're comfortable doing that, and that's fine, because this is my opinion, the municipal act gives you guys that power. And I say that because ultimately, like, all those decisions rest with council. The board of variance is making a recommendation to council.
So what would happen, let's just say we act as our own board of variance. And whoever comes before us doesn't get the way. And so they request an alternative for a board of variance, you know what I mean? Like, because it'd be like, if council says no, that's what the board of variance is there.
But you can't appeal council's decision. Like, you guys legislate like zoning and land development in your community. So you guys are the ultimate authority as far as that goes.
And you have 30 days in which to do so, but I mean, if you're trying your case with the same jury and judge, well, that's how that's gonna go.
Well, that's why I say, like, you may want a board of variance for those purposes, right? To remove kind of the perception of conflict, but you know, that's up to you. That's your prerogative, right? If you want to get a separate committee together, then council's removed completely from it. You're just accepting a recommendation or not. Yeah.
So I guess, instead of appointing one, if there came to a point where there was a very difficult, complex situation to deal with, we could input a board of variance to give us recommendations on it and then decide from there. If it was that complex, or, if we wanted to, but it's.
Honestly, what I've seen, guys, is like, my lot, or I want to build like a meter closer to your guys' easement, like those are the kind of variances I think you guys will be dealing with mostly. But I can't say that for sure, but in my experience, that's been it, right? Like, can I not do the setback that is in my zone, right? Can I have like an extra half meter for my yard to the sidewalk or something? It's kind of stuff like that in my experience is pretty low stakes. But again, like, it's completely up to you. I obviously don't care one way or the other what you guys want to do, but those are just kind of like the pros and cons of each, I guess.
Councillor Paquette, you have a couple of comments about the zoning bylaw. I would like you to bring those forward, please.
From now.
Yeah, sure.
So I looked at this and I'm like, the town has a lot of deadlines. What happens if we don't meet our deadlines?
Yeah, well, somebody would potentially have like legal recourse if you guys cost them some money or something like that. So those deadlines are in place, so there's a reasonable expectation on both the parties of development timelines. And if you guys did not meet that and somebody wanted to say like, hey man, you didn't meet this and it's costing me a bunch of money, they could possibly sue you because that's in your bylaw. So yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let me look at it, sorry. It's been a late night reading this thing, so.
So you better get your points across.
That's pretty interesting stuff, let me tell you.
I actually enjoyed reading this, to be honest with you.
It's better than the cemetery bylaw? Better than the cemetery bylaw?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
But this is long.
Yeah,
I don't know, in 7.7, there's D in here, and it talks about renovations, and I'm like, relocation of buildings and structures. So I'm not sure why that is there. If the applicant and or owner of the development fails to complete the required renovations within 12 months. So I'm not sure why that's there.
So I believe this was addressing a specific issue in the past. It's the beginning says no person shall move a building structure or non-CSA approved mobile home within or into the town without a development permit. So this just says, yeah, I guess if you get a development permit to do such a thing, and you don't do so within 12 months, the city can or the town can revoke your development permit.
But it's talking about renovation.
Yes, so that means if somebody moved a crappy trailer into town
Okay,
and pulled a development permit, that trailer doesn't sit there as a crappy trailer till the end of time. Town council can go in and have the renovations done as per the development permit and charge those fees back on the property taxes. So that
Yeah.
way we don't have another derelict property in town.
so renovate meaning moving it to where it's supposed to go? or-
Well, like, just put it this way, Councilor Paquette, you could put conditions on your development permit. So Cam would say like, yes, you can move your trailer in if it's crappy now. That's cool, but you need to fix it up within 6 months, say. You could put that as conditions on your development permit. And I guess like, just giving the town that flexibility to enforce that. I seem to recall that was a specific issue. So there's some ones like that are like really specific that we wanted to keep in there. So that may be one of those.
What you're saying is you're moving in a building that needs to be renovated, so you need to do those renovations on that building that you moved in. That's why it's there?
Yes,
Okay, all right. This is like 1:30 in the morning, guys. So this is, okay. Some of them I just highlighted because I was.
Would
like,
it be easier, Councillor Paquette, if you forward those questions to CA Lockwood and he could address them for you, or do you want to do them?
I have an issue. Okay, so we got this. Okay, so I have an issue. So along the highway, right? So we're trying to get rid of all these derelict properties, but now where we have the AFD, all of a sudden the snow has melted and there is a half-load of cars there. And when I read this, you're only supposed to have 3.
no, it depends on,
Derelict.
depends on the zone.
So that's the thing. So that's what I wondered along there. But then it also talks about having a fence so that people can't see all that. So why are we going from, have they been just moved from one side of the highway to the other side of the highway? Like, how did all these cars just all of a sudden get there?
Yes, and it's on, that's the property that's on the list of bylaw, because to have that stuff stored there, he needs a fence.
Okay,
And so that's something that bylaw, and that's allowance in the zoning bylaw for bylaw to deal with that, because that's accumulation that appeared over the winter that now has to be addressed, so.
yeah, because you drive by that all the time.
By it in times a day.
Yes, okay, so that was, yes. I don't know. And then along the highway too, so when we're talking, so we have where we put up these lovely signs for businesses, but now some of those businesses are no longer. So whose job is it then to take those signs down?
That is.
Chamber of Commerce.
Commerce, they're the holder of the signs, they have an agreement with the Yukon government.
Okay,
Yeah, and just so you guys know as well, or maybe you guys haven't been through a zoning bylaw process, but it's like a whole public hearing thing. So you guys, it's like first reading, public hearing, like da 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 da. So you guys will definitely have the opportunity to like read this and discuss like at future council meetings. And I can also attend if you guys want or whatever. It doesn't matter. But just let you guys know it'll be coming back at another council meeting for discussion again. Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have time to work on this. So, you know, if there's some things you want to address, Councillor Paquette, we can.
I'll just give you 2 little spots that, so 9.1B, there's nothing there, it's vacant.
That was also marked on.
And then when you look at the continuation with that,
Typo.
Yeah,
there's just nothing there. And so then when you look at
Oh,
page
yeah.
4 and you look at page 35, the top 3, so bed and breakfast, garden suite, multifamily, also appears at the top of page 35, which needs to be eliminated.
Yeah, but so I can explain that. There was a formatting issue. And you got the pre-formatted issue because Jordan just got me the reformatted one last night.
Oh,
So-
yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, the one that made into your package is slightly different.
Well, yeah, don't critique the layout, critique what's
The content.
He said if there were typos or whatever, so I'm going, okay, sorry.
We're going for content. Yeah.
okay, I got 2 quickies, okay. 7.1B, accessory buildings or structures shall not be located in the front yard or exterior side yard of any property in a residential zone, including corner lots. Does that mean garage beside the house?
71.
7.3.
Talking about line of sight.
Accessory buildings or structures shall not be located in the front yard or any exterior side yard of any property in a residential zone, including corner lots.
Yeah. So if you look at there's a listing of what an accessory structure means. And so I think this was trying to get at like CCANs, right, Cam, I think, was part of this.
Yeah, and then the other one was that, so there wasn't a garage, a detached garage in front of the house. And when this talks about the exterior side, that's referring to like a corner lot. So your house would be, it was because they didn't want the garage out on the street side and then the house on the inside. So it looked like you got a garage, right? It was the house.
Oh,
was
okay.
supposed to be the outside of the garage on the inside of the property.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and accessory structures are things like sheds, CCANs, like there's a number of different things. And so we're just trying to control that a little bit more closely as well. Yeah.
Or do we have in our okay, so obviously this is the bylaw we're working on, but do we have in our existing bylaw accessible parking? Is
Yes,
that just new?
no, it's in the old one as well.
Okay, because there's not very much accessible like handicap
Yes.
parking around.
But that's the problem was a lot of that wouldn't have been put in until the last bylaw. And so we can only enforce back during that period, any new developments in that time period.
Okay, that's why I was asking if it was in our previous
Yeah.
one, so this one, or if that was just new, okay. All right,
2016, I think was that.
And this one might be obvious, so forgive me if it is, but the landscaping and aesthetics, the garbage and recycling,
Yeah.
the 8.1B, so all site reviews, and is this, I guess, okay, does this mean the town garbage cans as well? Or is this just like while you're doing a project?
It says all site refuse and recycling bins, including all other large receptacles used for the temporary storage of materials, require opaque screening from adjacent lots and streets. Yeah, so it just means if you have like garbage on site, it needs to be covered. It needs to be covered if it's on site. Yep.
Okay. Do we also do that? Okay. That's it for me right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do other little ones, but it's.
Like you said, Jordan, we'll most likely have to have this at a hall meeting to have comment and feedback, so we can also provide some more, I don't think this is the last time we'll be seeing this.
This one has a required like public feedback thing built in I think it's built into the municipal act for zoning bylaws. So
Hall meeting, public hearing. Okay. Okay,
anyways, do you guys want to move on to the strategic plan?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
If everybody's okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be super quick again because I didn't prepare anything to say, so that's good. Here you have the updated strategic plan. You guys saw this, I think, a couple weeks ago. It's more or less the same, except for Cam and I, we went through and we put in provisional budgets for everything that needed it. So this is just a reminder, I guess, at budget time, when these, when you're deciding what projects need to be done in the coming year, that you just have these little reminders like, oh, hey, I need like five grand to scope this project, or actually like I need a consultant for that. So Cam and I also talked about how I kind of see like it's not phase 2 of this project, but kind of the next step in terms of how this is action throughout the organization. And we talked about Cam wanting to, delegate some of these strategic items to his managers and start, bringing them along in terms of like really contributing, I guess, in the way an ideal manager should, just being able to work on these strategic items and report to council and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know how far we got with that conversation, but that might be something we're looking at as well. Like just like, I guess, just helping Cam, like advise Cam on like how he can incorporate these items in his work, in the work plans with his various managers and stuff like that. So that will really provide a lot of inertia, I think, to get these things moving. And I don't know, it's just like, strategic plan. I'm dealing with another client who like wants everything like laid out, like ABCD, like, 20, now to 2025. And I just tend to think like, you guys have a lot of good first steps in there, that will moving in the direction that your community wants you to go in. And a lot of the time we don't know the second step. And I think I've told you this lots, but you guys are smart and you're capable and you'll figure it out. But the important thing is just starting and, start to move these things forward, and they'll kind of grow legs on their own, and you'll see where they're going. The balance will be, how much, we're trying to get some work off Cam's plate so we can really focus on the top priorities and, and feel comfortable and confident like that the work is happening underneath him on some of the smaller stuff or like lower hanging fruit. So I really think like that, if you can get your organization to respond to that, that would be really something. I think that to me would really demonstrate a kind of evolution of the town of Watson Lake, the organization, where the CAO is not needing to do every single thing, and you can build a good management team that can do these things as well. And so if we get to work on that together, I look forward to that as well. And I think that'll really help move this stuff along. Council's got the easy part. They just need to be like, hey, what did you do, Cam? Like, you know what I mean? There is some, I think the one thing I'll just say, and I'll kick it out to council here, is like, there is some things in there where the onus is on council, right? And I think I broke it out between administrative and council things. And that's not to do things, right? But to let your staff know when is the right time to get something moving and, like initial direction. So, like Cam is going to be busy, and, you'll need to prompt him when you want stuff to move, if that's identified as a council responsibility within the plan. Okay. So that's really the only thing. And besides looking at the work and improving it and making sure it has the proper resources and all that kind of regular stuff, it's just these items that you need to prompt the organization to make them happen when you want them to happen. And those would be identified as council strategic items in the plan. So with that, I think it's a good plan. It's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. And I think it should be pretty easy to follow and gets you where you need to go, I hope. So that's it.
The thing that jumped out to me the most, and that included all those things you just said, Jordan, was the bring forward proposal for signpost forest upgrades, 2022, 20K. Bring forward proposal for improved highway signage program, 10K. Bring forward proposal for landscaping project along the highway, 20K.
All the things we're talking about.
What do you think I'm gonna say next? Take the signpost forest, 3 poles, 5 poles at a time, put them in places where there's no trees, 0 maintenance, 0 watering. They're there. It's kind of like Shetland as you're going through. You get to see that because a lot of people stop at the signpost forest, and you wouldn't have to have a $40,000 plan to do it. You just got to drill some holes, put some poles in.
Okay.
Well, the fun part about this is, Cam and his staff develop a plan and bring this forward to council, and you guys get to kind of weigh in on it with that kind of, that particular lens, and just say like, would it be possible to do this or that? And staff will tell you the best way they think they can do it. And you guys can of course change that like you always do. I'm just kidding. And that's the beauty of it. It's like a collaborative thing, right? So we know the first step, for example, with the signpost forest. I don't know if this is the first step, but it's kind of like, do an options assessment of how we can expand. Like, great, like Cam can get some of that together, can say, hey, council, I need X amount of money. Like, want to hire a consultant to do ABC. You guys can help shape it, right? And then away you go. So I think that's the beauty kind of leaving things not too like detailed as well. There's that flexibility. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I think that it's great that, we never specifically said we want to discuss to determine town's role in providing affordable housing in Watson Lake, but through all of our discussions and just conversation, we came up to these priorities, and we have this laid out for us in a very simplified manner to follow. And I think that it's broken down well, and I think it's very achievable, if you would. And I think that, you know, we are trying to take some off Cam's lap because he does a lot. So I think that what we have in front of us is workable. I don't think it's like set in, doesn't have to be set in stone, but I think that the timing of it is great with the OCP and their zoning bylaw to be able to get lots of this done. And I think that, you know, for 2 years, if we can kind of reference to this constantly, we're going to be successful in 3 years. So I do like it. I think it's a good job. And I like that it's not something we said, we want this, we want this, we want this. It was general conversation. And I also like how it falls in line. A lot of it falls in line with what YG is doing. And we didn't tell you that that's what we wanted, but it's just kind of the way the Yukon is going because of what we feel our community needs and how the Yukon is growing. And we just kind of, it fell in line with that in a lot of ways. So I like it. Bottom line. It's good.
Thank you.
And it's
And-
nice to go to AYC and see that we were in line with the other communities as well.
But I don't know if there's any other questions, comments, or anything you guys want to discuss this anymore.
I love it.
There you go.
Well, that's good, guys. Yeah, I think it's totally useful and it starts to get to where you need to go. And I'm really pleased to hear about that it aligns with other things. It just confirms to me that you guys are kind of right on in your thinking, you know what I mean? And it's going to make it easier that you are aligned because resources, it'll just make resources easier to flow your way. And you guys have done it once, like I did this with you in 2019 and we did a plan and you guys like implemented it all and
Yeah.
you know,
I would
there you
say
go, like
that-
the community's way better and like, oh my
Yeah, well,
God, amazing how that
That
happened.
2019 strategy, I actually glimpsed at it today. And the structure of that was a lot different because of the situation we were in. It was very
Ooh.
internal. It was internal focused. And it wasn't so much about what the community wants. It's about what we needed to build capacity for so we could.
Yeah. And
So
now
we-
that you've built
yeah.
that capacity, right? Like you can,
Yeah.
you're focusing more outward. So it's a whole evolution and it's just really amazing to acknowledge and see. And like, you don't have to worry so much about the organization anymore, you know, it's in good hands. And
Oh, yes, we do. No,
well, you know, but like, we're not triaging like, oh my God, we're gonna be able to open the doors tomorrow. Like,
No,
in
that's right.
2019, so.
well, you missed our auditor's report. Pretty good.
Okay,
So-
well, maybe.
But yeah,
Okay.
Jordan, it's been a long night. We had lots. Everybody's had a busy day. Danina was up till 4 a.m. reading all this stuff. So,
Yeah,
so
for sure.
well, I would just say thank you again. I'm sure it's not the last time we'll see you. You're gonna, yeah. So appreciate all the work you did. Glad you're recovering from COVID. Last time we saw you, you looked a little tired. Not gonna lie. So
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Long night, definitely. So take care and I'll be back in touch with Cam and we'll see you again soon in the near future.
that's great. Thanks, Jordan.
Jordan,
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Cam, for all your work on this and your help and your assistance. And good luck in your endeavors in accomplishing all these goals.
You're telling me I'm gone. My future is
Oh, I didn't say that. We still have one more item for the agenda, so I'm just quickly.
I'm in favor.
But I second. I'm gonna read this letter, I guess. It's, you have to. As discussed in our previous meeting about banking within the community, we thought we would reach out to Minister Paley about this. Yeah, okay. And it is just regarding our banking in the community and how I'm gonna simplify it, how YG is mandated to supply service to our community and how that service has been somewhat lacking. So we've built in some examples and really emphasized how we feel we need some added assistance with our banking in the community. And we will send this and hopefully have a response shortly. Hope everybody's okay with that.
I am.
If you want a copy of the letter, maybe we can email it to the chamber once it's signed and approved.
It's a good one.
Want me to read it? Okay, no problem. No problem. I wish to bring your attention to some dissatisfaction that our organization has experienced with the CIBC Banking Center in Watson Lake, as well as frustrations that have expressed by the community members. Although we appreciate that we have a full service bank in our community, there is also an expectation of satisfactory service and convenience. Being that it is a mandate of the Yukon government to provide banking service for all Yukoners, we hope that the points brought forward in this letter will be used to apply pressure to CIBC to better meet the needs of the Yukon client base. It is my understanding that there has been a high staff turnover at our branch, causing unexpected closures and reduced hours of operation. The hours have been inconsistent and unpredictable, proving to be a major inconvenience for many, and has created issues with the day-to-day operations of local businesses, including the municipality. Over the past few years, the number of staff employed at the CIBC Watson Lake branch has decreased significantly, and COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated the understaffing issue. The branch is often closed early and during lunch breaks, and at times has been closed for several days at a time during the week. I would also like to bring to your attention the process and procedure changes that have negatively impacted residences. One issue that people have experienced is the lack of access to funds when depositing a check into personal and business CIBC accounts. It appears that CIBC now places a 4 business day hold on all checks, including those drawn on CIBC. The town of Watson Lake has banked with the local CIBC branch for several decades and has not had an issue cashing a petty cash check. This is sometimes something that was experienced recently. This policy can also be challenging for many residences who live paycheck to paycheck, do not have the means to get by without access to their funds. Not everyone receives their funds direct deposit to their accounts, and they should not be punished for something that is beyond their control. I do understand that there are regulatory practices that must be followed. However, there should be discretion used when dealing with longtime trusted clients such as the municipality. And CIBC should be working to accommodate their clients whenever possible. Our administration team has also negotiated or noticed heightened security measures for basic day-to-day transaction requests. Security measures are extremely important, as we all know. However, if CIBC is going to provide service to the north, they should understand that our needs are not the same as those in large city centers as Toronto. We are a small town of around 1,000 people where everyone knows each other. To require a signed letter of discretion followed by 3 separate telephone call confirmations just to send a transfer seems a bit excessive. It is becoming less and less convenient to conduct business with the only bank in town, and unfortunately, most feel that there have been no other options. We hope that the Yukon government will work with CIBC to hopefully address some of these concerns. I look forward to hearing from you. Please do not hesitate to contact me for any questions.
Your worship, it was nice that we didn't say that we've hired most of their staff. though.
That's not me today. The bank is now here. Okay, so anyways, the reason we did that was Minister Palais actually came to us at AYC and mentioned that he was at CIBC headquarters and that they were looking into such situations and said that a letter of concern would help put the pressure on them if they're negotiating things in the CIBC office.
Can I say one thing?
Can you save your question? Sorry, because we're gonna go to gallery open forum, which we have to go through on that, and you'll have your time chance, but because there's not going to be any questions for Councillor Open Forum. Okay. But that's what we're into next. So Councillor Open Forum.
What are we going to do with the wood at the landfill that we cut down, those trees? Seniors?
The wood at the landfill, as we did with the other wood that has been cut down, we've advertised it on our social media and stuff and saying that it's up for grabs.
I forget. It's not dirty like the other stuff, so someone might actually take it.
Yes.
Anyway, that was just a question. That's it.
I don't have any today. Thank you.
Somebody was asking me, okay, if we do anything with the ditches in the municipality of getting rid of willows and stuff from the ditches. Do we do that?
We haven't, but we have purchased equipment to do that. Unfortunately, we are in megatory bird window where we cannot start brushing until end of August. So operations in conjunction with the public works foreman have come up with a work plan for this season. And we will be brushing ditches, but something that we can do and they've been instructed to do when they have time is because they can do intersections fall under a different classification so that they can brush intersections back. Under safety.
Yeah.
That's very
Exactly. Intersection birds. don't
Yeah.
matter.
The other thing is, so then in conversation tonight about that lot and having it cleared right to like their property line, is there? Can we still have the capacity to change that in our zoning bylaw where we can make it so that you can only. In certain like country residential, right? So you can only cut so far to your property line and you have to leave some trees. Can we still do that?
It depends on the road allowance too, right? Because if we're doing new road construction, like, let's say we're rebuilding Wide Drive. So on Wide Drive and the new plan, it's gonna be built higher and there's gonna be ditches, so a lot of that road allowance will have to be cleared to allow for that. So it depends on the zone, because like in the residential zones, you have the road and then it goes to the property line, so I don't know how you would allow for leaving big chunks of trees like that. Vegetation along there. But we do have policy that allows me to specify how wide a driveway can be access into a property. And it's based on width of the frontage of the lot. But the maximum width of a driveway going into a property is 10 meters. So,
I don't know what some of those measurements are in here. That's why I said that before, because there's a lot of measurements and I'm like, well, I don't know what that means, but so I don't even know when you say 10 meters.
33 feet.
Okay, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not something that we could potentially be like, so maybe not on our roadway, but maybe like between a property, you can only cut so far, so that at least there is some vegetation between you and the other property owner. It's kind of what I'm
Called a
thinking.
fence.
Well, I guess
Well, I mean, and that's fine, but the thing is, like, I don't know, I live in country residential, like, I don't want somebody cutting right to their, like, right and then having nothing, like, I don't cut to my property line, but I mean, that's my choice.
That's right, though. You own that property. They own that property. You can't tell somebody.
Property if you want.
Yeah, you can't tell somebody what to do with their property.
Yeah.
We all agree, that's my law, so you are telling people what they can do.
Is, I think that, within the zoning bylaw, I guess there is potential to explore options for residential, like, let's call it rural residential lots.
Yeah.
To have a variance of vegetation. We could, a setback of vegetation, we could explore those options and discuss those further. I don't know what that looks like, but.
But that's what I'm saying, like
Yeah.
you said
Yeah.
specifically, go around and see if this makes sense. So we've just heard somebody. And you go there and you look and you see it's cut right, like they have there's no privacy at all. Their whole land now is.
So the difference there would be because of the spot zoning, you have a residential lot in the middle of commercial and industrial lots. So the variances aren't going to be the same there.
Okay.
You have to take that into consideration.
That area, but in the area where I live, that's all residential, right?
it's country residential.
Right, so that's the thing. So if I clear right to my property line. And it exposes, like it does affect the person beside me. And within this, there's a lot of consolations for, you have to make sure your drainage doesn't go onto somebody else's property. You have to make sure that your property, whatever you're doing there, isn't affecting the people beside you. So that's why I'm asking about that, like, if there's some way that you can, because that's still some privacy. I understand a fence, but the reality is, you're gonna cut everything down. And then you're gonna put up like this, then you're forcing your neighbor then to put up a fence, but maybe they don't have the money to put a fence. They don't want to put up a fence. Like, they had moved out there to have some vegetation. So that's why I'm just asking about that, right?
Yeah, so your worship, I guess that principle works well in country residential. and in rural residential properties. But where it gets complicated is when you have trailer lot, rural, like mobile home lots or residential lots in town, because the lots are so small already. So then if you start specifying how many feet of vegetation need to be left, then there's not enough room to develop a house on it. So that's where it gets.
But then that's why I said country residential.
Yep, so those,
Right?
those are
So-
things that council can look at going forward,
Mhm.
and that can be a recommendation to changes, and it can be. And then if the people in the community like those ideas, those are brought forward at the public hearing and input into this, to the final draft of the zoning bylaw. So it's not too late to put them in, it's to bring them forward and then have consensus and put in, because you do bring, that's a valuable thing. Like I said, I had owned a property in northern Manitoba and I had to stay 3 meters. My setback was 3 meters of vegetation from the property line. And the development officer came and checked that that was it was written right in there. So you went in and you cleared your building site, but you still had to have 10 feet of trees or vegetation along your property line for that specific reason.
Because I mean, vegetation does a lot of good things for us. It's land erosion, it's, it's
Mhm.
environmentally good for us to have trees, so, I mean, if we have, and we just allow people to just clear cut everything, well, now what, I mean, now you're living in Saskatchewan, where you've got dust everywhere. No, but you know what I mean? Like, you've just got dust everywhere, so that's the reality of it, right? It's,
Point made, Denise.
so that's why I'm saying that, like, it's beautification of the town as well.
Yep, and we can look into, surely that there will be some recommendations for that vegetation in country residential and rural residential for you.
Because I know we have industrial on the other side of us, or commercial, or whatever. you call it.
Yeah.
We built a fence.
Okay.
Why? Because we didn't want to look at all the crap on the other side, right? So.
All
You
right,
know what I mean?
thank you, Councillor Paquette. Is there another question for Councillor Open?
No,
Thank you.
no,
Thank you.
that was my.
Thank you very much.
You can see, I
Point made.
read this and I'm kind of passionate about some of the stuff in there, so.
And I appreciate it, and I thank you. And thank you for taking the time to get into that. And if there's more comments that you have, please provide feedback, because it is the time to do those things. And especially if you're hearing it from other people, we want to make sure that it's done to the spec. Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor Burgess.
Oh, yeah, I got 2 small things. We hired a fire chief. Or almost, or close, or.
I'm in the process.
Okay,
He's
that's all.
been
No,
being
no,
paused,
that's
I'm
all.
like, oh.
I just wanted to know where that was at.
Yes.
Okay, and just because I saw the house thing on there, so I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know we don't run Arts in the Park, but do we have a say of where that is located at? In a sense?
It's a contracted thing out. The reason it was held at the Northern Lights Center, I think this time, was to try, because we have all the tourists already there.
I understand that logic, but it's not the best place for it.
No, I totally
Like,
agree.
it just, it was.
Yeah, no, I didn't know about it going there until it happened, so I will have to look in to see how that is. I think I'll have to look, but I think it is private individuals that run that.
No, for sure.
Change it to rock
I
and
think it's
roll.
nice to try things new.
The
how it goes.
only reason I thought not is because for one, it was just the way that it was all laid out in the parking lot, big, like, I don't know, it's just not as nice.
For sure. I mean, you have the.
what I've heard from a couple other people, yeah.
Idea to draw some highway traffic to. the
And that's what I understood that concept of it, but I don't know if there's just a better solution if you're gonna do it there, maybe on the grass, or I don't know.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, and I mean, that was their first time, so.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's why I was just wondering if we had any sort of say or could suggest.
But I think Connie's instrumental in that.
No, and I know, I just don't know if we could suggest where
yeah, I will.
they want to put that, or maybe, I don't know. I don't want to step on somebody's toes because we're not the one running it and they're running it, but I just,
Point taken. Thank you, Councillor.
You're welcome.
We appreciate it. With that, any more council open forum? No? Okay, good. Moving right ahead, gallery open forum. Janice, oh, you have a question?
Well, on more of this PIBC thing,
Mm-hmm.
when you're sending for a wire, you have to, I have it all set up with the bank, I just email the bank. But then I have to phone the bank from Central America, you cannot phone the Yukon without it being so staticky that they can't hear you, which is the Northwest Tel problem. So I was going to beg 3-4 times to try and get them so that they could hear me. And one time I was sitting in the parking lot of a hardware store, please stand, and it was a little bit hard. That's another CIBC story I have problems with, because they all know me and they know I do it all the time, but still add, I'm gonna deal with my Northland Cell problem. You can't phone the Yukon. I tried phoning several places and you can't. You can phone BC, but. And when we first moved into our Lakeshore property, our neighbors were right next door, so we planted a row of trees. Those trees are now 30-40 feet high. We can't even see our neighbors. Maybe that's an option that you could look at. And what are the town baskets from?
Town baskets are going up, hopefully this week. We had staffing issues. And as like everything, we haven't been able to staff, but our new flower lady started last Thursday. And the baskets are being shipped by Pacific Northwest on either, my days are a mix already, but Wednesday or Thursday, they're supposed to be coming, which would be tomorrow. So I would say Thursday or Friday, they're supposed to be coming down. And then they'll be put out probably by next week.
I was just wondering if it was still on the docket or.
Yeah, it's the same thing as the banners. We've been waiting for the banners and they just showed up today. So everything's behind, unfortunately.
Yeah, look at someone.
COVID's got us all backed up. Mrs. Wilkins.
Well, I have a few things. So I'm one of the empty lot ones. Considered empty lot. So that was a huge, and ours is active. We do use it, we have it, that the planes horses are there right now. So they can keep their feet dry. But I think I heard it a few times that some of the bylaws are being done because to solve a certain problem or problem taxpayers. So maybe when that is something, maybe look at all the lots that would fit under that. And then just look at what works and what doesn't. And there might be other ways of resolving something. That's just a comment. I don't want to answer it.
Well, there was a lot of reason behind those, and it wasn't just, we looked at every individual one and we looked at every, and it, without being too specific, we had to generalize and try and spark some motivation is what we were doing. And yes, I understand that you fall into that category, unfortunately, but your minimum,
It's a big jump.
yeah, and your minimum would have been maybe less. So I don't know how to fix that. I'm sorry.
And so did Corey uses, they fell into that too.
Corey.
Why?
Corey.
Because they're active working. So.
Like a gravel, or whatever.
In the property, went from 600, 800 to residential, 900 for commercial.
Yeah.
Then with that same issue, what happens when, because I'm hearing this new bylaw thing that's coming up, that's still not fixing lots of the problems of things that are grandfathered in. So, most of the people that are doing the new projects, they're doing what they're supposed to do. And these are other ones that have never been dealt with from years and years. And I know it's not under Cam's thing, that's way in history there.
Yeah.
But how do you fix that stuff? And it's never gonna be fixed. And I was on this board I wasn't on it, but I had to go to that board for my neighbor's place. And that was very, very uncomfortable to be at. And nothing's been done. Like, it's still, and you know, vehicles, like.
Yeah, well, we have a bylaw officer now, so that's,
That's all in there, Rich. That's all we look after. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
How do you fix those things? Yeah, you get a new bylaw officer, but that's all been accepted for how many years?
I think some things just take time, Ruth, like if you look at Watts Lake in the 1950s. Where the majority of the housing was, because there was only one street, right? There wasn't any other residences elsewhere. It was one street, highway, that was that, right? So everything revolved around that. There used to be the Home Hardware and the YTG place, Eastwick's house used to be over on that, and it got moved over, you know, like. Communities evolve over time, and nothing is a quick fix, right? I mean, CP collision there, you spent 1 million cars and they're all smashed up, and, but you know, over time, they got removed, they got taken care of. There's other things that have happened along the way that it once was, with the Northern Light Center now, there used to be that big concrete pad there where the bucket of blood used to be. I think it was, anyway, no, there's something else that was, it burnt down, anyway, the concrete was there. But that got turned into the Northern Light Center, so that actually got replaced with something else. It's an organic evolution, if you will, community, right? Like nothing, we can't make a bylaw and just be like, bunch of bomb, pretty, right? It'd be nice. But like some things just, so you put the things in place to make things.
That's the, I think that's the hope with the zoning bylaw, and we've all emphasized the main commercial fairway, if you would, that we don't want to see changes to spot zoning. We want it, if it's there, you're lucky it's there, but it's not going to be that way like going forward, you know, because we want to maintain, we don't want it to continue to happen, and we want people to develop different locations. And I know what you're saying, and I don't know how to fix that, you know, like incentivize, you can maintenance bylaw. Yeah, I guess there is ways, but it's just, we haven't totally endeavored into it.
So is there things that are grandfathered in that will never change that? Or how do you folks see this going ahead?
Wouldn't land ownership, once it changes hands, then there's no longer grandfathered in. And then it would have to then go by the next
Unless
bylaw,
it's a
would it
business
not?
that's used for the same business as it was previously. So if you own a gas station and you still operate a gas station, you don't have to do an environmental assessment because it's always been a gas station. But if you start and you turn it into like a KFC, then it triggers an environmental assessment in some cases.
Yes, and the other thing too is if somebody is on a property that's. Let's say they're in an industrial area and it's still deemed as industrial, but they're living there. The minute they sell it, it's a commercial, they have to have a commercial business to resort with it. But some of these other properties, if they're in that zone and they're not allowed to build, let's say if there's a house they're living in right now and they want to build a new house on the same property and they're not their grandfather, they can't do that. So they're not.
So it can stop eventually,
Yes.
just, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, that's right.
Fine, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Totally takes time.
Are there any industrial lots available?
Is there any lots available in town for sale right now on the market? Zero.
Zero industrial.
Zero.
In fact, our very last one just.
Yeah.
Just, I believe.
That was highway commercial.
And I also have a lot of comments of the parts in the park. Because, I mean, it is for local people. And it's the perfect setting, but it was just all of a sudden. I mean, it was just done. That's it.
Thank you, Open Gallery. So there's someone on iPhone on Zoom. If you want to unmute, do you have any questions? Okay, I'll take that as a no.
We need to know who it is. You know who it is for the minutes.
Try. Anybody, person on iPhone, can you tell us who you are? Nope.
They're like, nope.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Councilor Hancher, Councilor Paquette, all in favor. Aye. Carried.
I have 2 questions I want to ask. Unrelated to council.